everybody's. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our destination debrief. This destination debriefs are one of many trainings that we provide for our advisors on a weekly basis. We do about 40 hours of trainings, different partner engagements, all different kinds of things for our advisors here at Fora. Destination debriefs are actually one of our foundational pieces of training. Henley and I started doing them the very beginning of the founding of Fora. So certainly very special to us. They've gone through a lot of different iterations, but we love these trainings. I think they're so fantastic and super, super happy to be with you guys today to share with you our destination debrief on the Nordics, the Nordic countries, and the Northern Lights. I wanted to call it, murder mysteries and Nordic lights because that's what I feel like everyone knows the Nordic countries for now, those super spooky, like Netflix murder mysteries. But they said we had to call it Nordic countries and Northern Lights. This is really fantastic too because we just finished a FAM there last week. This is a part of the world that I have spent some time in over the years. I really love it. I think that everyone should get there and super excited to share it with you all. So, number one, this is the what we will cover today, aka table of contents. This deck lives in Portal. For those of you who are not advisors, Portal is our source of truth here at Fora. It is where our advisors can sell, they can find information, they can keep their client information, everything together. And this deck, along with the recording of this destination debrief, lives in Portal for our advisors to access anytime they want. So you can certainly feel free to take notes, jot your thoughts down, but you can also go back to this deck and see what is in here and use all of the resources that are in here, which include marketing materials. So those of you who are advisors, you will receive an email with these marketing materials after this destination debrief, or you can just go back and refer to this destination debrief in Portal and you will have access to all of these marketing materials there. We always support our advisors with marketing, with this kind of amazing destination information for destinations they might not know so they can still sell them to their clients or work with them with their clients. And this is just one way that we support our advisors. So now let's talk about the Nordic regions. Why the Nordic regions? Really, why not the Nordic regions? They offer so much. An amazing food scene, as you guys may know. Denmark had one of the best restaurants in the world for many, many years. It is a great food scene. It is great for shopping. Scandinavian Nordic design, of course, super beautiful, really great in the summer because you're outdoors, green, water, all of this amazing stuff, the fjords in Norway, all of this stuff. In the winter, Christmas markets, all of the outdoor activities, you can see ski mountains from Oslo, all of these really, really amazing things to do here. So for me, this is an amazing part of the world to get to as a person and also to send your clients to, particularly when you have somebody who maybe is tired of like Italy or France and they were there last summer and they're like, it was so crowded. It's not that it's not going to be maybe a little bit crowded in the summer in this area, but it is going to be much less crowded than someplace like Italy in the middle of the summer. So if you have somebody who's tired of that or somebody who feels like they've done a lot of the more traditional spots in Europe, definitely send them up here. Clients to book, everyone. Great for families who want to be outdoors. I will also say there's a great cultural scene that gets stronger and stronger, particularly in places like Oslo, where they have some great new museums, but great outdoors activities, lots of stuff to do. Northern Lights, we will talk about as well. Of course, you're going to see those. All of this stuff is just reasons families, couples. I think a honeymoon here would be fantastic. All of these, and really different than the sort of like beachy honeymoon, but super fun for a couple who loves the outdoors. All great reasons to travel here. And really, I think you can make it work for any client. How long to stay? There are flights to almost every major city in the Nordics from, for instance, New York or the West Coast. The West Coast, of course, far longer flight. East Coast is only about 8 hours to any of these cities. So how long you stay a little bit for me would be decided by how long your flight to get there is. If you're coming from the West Coast, you might want to make sure you stay a minimum of 7 to 8 days or something like that, because you're going to have a little bit more jet lag. If you're coming from the East Coast, I actually think you could do even 5 days and make it work. It depends also too if you're focusing on one country or if you want to see several of the countries that are in the Nordics. I will tell you the difference between Nordics and Scandinavia. Scandinavia does not include Finland, and the Nordics does. I learned that on this trip. I did not know that before. Nordics Region 101. Here are the countries that we are talking about today. Norway. Norway is famous for the fjords. It's famous for the cruising the fjords, for going out and seeing them. Oslo is used to be thought of as maybe a kind of quiet city. It's gone through a bit of a renaissance. A lot of great stuff happening in Oslo right now. Great food scene, really amazing art scene. They have a museum, NAM that opened I think 3 years ago. It was supposed to open during COVID and then of course was delayed. They used that opportunity to tour their collection around the country, which was like really wonderful. And there's some great stories from that if you tour NAM with any of their guides, and a couple of other really wonderful contemporary museums there. So lots of stuff happening in Norway. Really, really beautiful, stunningly beautiful country. Finland, I spent the most time on this, or we spent the most time this last trip sort of exploring different parts of Finland. And I actually hadn't been to Finland before. It was the only one of these countries I hadn't been to before. And I was so impressed. The design, the people, very low key, but like great Scandi design and really amazing experiences. Finland also is going to be where a lot of people think about Santa Claus. So if you have a family and they want to explore that Santa Claus connection, think of Finland, the Lapland up north, and then even places like Porvo, which we'll talk about quickly. Sweden, perhaps the most famous of these countries, maybe not. Stockholm is an amazing city, really, really beautiful. Swedish Lapland, of course, as well for the Northern Lights, anywhere up north for the Northern Lights, really beautiful. Denmark, Copenhagen. We did not do that on this trip. I have spent time there in the past, though. Again, another amazing city, has Tivoli Gardens. All of these places, have like also water activities you can do. You can go out on the ferries and go to little neighborhoods around and all that kind of stuff. So really, I cannot say these areas are similar but completely different. Each one has an individual feel, but they all work together really well. And so you could spend time in each individual one of these and have a really amazing trip, or you could curate a trip where you cover two, three, even four of them if you wanted to. Of course, that would take a much longer time. There are different ways to travel between them. We traveled between Sweden and Finland via ferry, which is really not a ferry. It was kind of a little bit like a low key cruise boat. I also want to go back up to Norway, which is famous for the railway and the Flam and Bergen. And then Denmark, like lots of I've done fun little cruises outside of Denmark too. And you can cruise over to Malo on the Swedish side. So lots of ways to get in between these places that are creative, interesting, fun, and a little bit different. And then also you can fly between them all. What is new and noteworthy? So we always talk about our top booked hotels. These are some great ones, all of which, except for number 6, we actually got to go and see on this last trip. And it is a good sort of sampling of what is available. So Samaro is in Oslo. It is a beautiful hotel. It opened about 3 years ago. I was lucky to be there right after it opened. It has a beautiful spa. It has a great bar up on the roof. It is a 1920s 30s kind of art deco vibe, very happening for a local crowd as well. Everybody goes to the bar up on the roof. Really love this spot. I've been lucky enough to stay here a few times and I feel like it just gets better every time, including one of the concierges downstairs who I remembered from my last trip, and he remembered me, and it was like just like lovely personal connection. The Thief, always one of my favorite. We have a little star on this because the Thief is actually undergoing a big renovation right now. I actually thought it looked fantastic, but it is going under big renovation. So they're closing a floor at a time, I think, to redo the hallways, the rooms, everything else. It has a very dark, sexy vibe. It will continue to have that dark, sexy vibe, but there's just going to be a little bit upticked and refreshed. So super excited to see that because I adore this property. Somebody asked yesterday, and this is also the Thief is also in Oslo. It's actually owned by the same group, Nordic Hotels, as Samaro. Somebody asked yesterday what of these was good for families. They're all good for families, but I would say actually the Thief is good for families just because the room size is a little bit bigger, even though it has that dark, sexy vibe. The other thing to note about the Thief, great art collection there. I should probably talk about this on the slides later, but anyway, I got carried away. The other hotel to note in Oslo is America Lynchen, which is also part of this group, which I think we talk about later. And the Hotel St. George is in Helsinki. We loved this hotel. I think this really felt like you were sort of staying at your sophisticated friend's very cool apartment. Also is one of the only pieces of commercial property Ai Weiwei art in the world. So if you are an art person, great to stop here. Hotel Comp, also in Helsinki. another sister property to the St. George. Really, really beautiful. I didn't get to stay at this property, but our LA crowd did get to stay there. So excited if they have any feedback on that. Hotel at 6. Try having a conversation with somebody about meeting at the hotel at 6 at what time. It turns into an Abbott and Costello routine really, really quickly. And then the Nordic Lights Hotel, again, also in Helsinki. So, really excited about all of these properties, all really fantastic stuff that's coming. I got an email from Magnus, who is from Boost Nordics, who is the one who worked with us on this FAM. Boost Nordics is a really interesting company. It's a little bit like a representation company. And if you're a Fora advisor, you know what that is. If you're not a Fora advisor, you have questions, become a Fora advisor. A little bit like a representation company and a tourism board had a baby. That would be Boost Nordics. And he told me he's really excited also about a place called the Paternoster, but he sent me a website entirely in a Scandinavian language that I could not read. So I'm not exactly sure, but he said that's another one to be excited about. When to visit. So, this will tell you the sort of best time to visit and all of that. I have been in this area year round, and I will say, I think the experiences are really cool year round. It depends on your interests and also depends upon setting expectations. So, the summer is absolutely stunning, really beautiful. It does get warm. The days are much longer. They have very long days, have all of the beautiful activities that you can do outside from hiking to boating and all of this other stuff. Really, really nice. But winter, super cozy, freezing outside, yes. Short days, yes. But fireplaces, blankets, cozy, beautiful, all of this great stuff. Also, Christmas markets. So outside of Oslo, there's an amazing Christmas market that's in their traditional Viking village. That's a little bit like traditional Williamsburg or Mystic Seaport, something like that. But they put their Christmas market there. Super fun to go there. Also, skiing in the winter. Oslo, again, I think one of the only world capitals where you can see the ski mountain from the city center, or not the city center, but the edge of the city. Really for me, best time to visit depends on what you or your client is interested in and what sort of activities they want to partake of, and also their image of these places. If they're really into the Danish concept of hygge, yes, I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that cozy at home atmosphere, it's a great time to visit in winter. Even going to someplace like the fjords, you can do that in winter. It's just that the time is much constrained. So you might get out to the fjords, but you only have until 3:30, say in the afternoon, or 4 o'clock before the sun sets. So you can participate in a lot of stuff, but there are just different environments in all of these seasons. So for me, it's very much about setting expectations and finding out what your client really wants to do and what their expectations of the destination are. The benefits of working with a DMC. So, for those of you who are not for advisors, a DMC is a destination management company. A destination management company makes our job as advisors easier by number one, lending destination expertise. So, you can say, my client really wants to go and visit Christmas markets. And a DMC is going to say, great, there's this Christmas market, this one, and that one. Those are the good ones. Let's curate a trip around making that happen. And they're going to know all of the tricks and everything to make that happen for you in the best possible way. On top of that, they have the closest relationship. So if your client wants to dig deeper on anything, if they want special access experiences, if they want to visit museums before they open, any of that, that's the kind of thing that a DMC can do for you and then for your client. So I love working with DMCs. We talked to a couple of DMCs on this trip and worked with a couple on this trip. This is a great area to do that in because there are a lot of logistics that are going to be a little bit more difficult for you as an advisor to understand if you don't know this area very well. But on top of that, if you work with a DMC, you are enabling yourself to make commission on everything in the trip and not just pieces of the trip. So great to think about working with a DMC here. And also, I don't know if we have another slide about cruise, but they can also help you navigate. As I mentioned earlier, there are different ways to get between these places. So you could fly spot to spot to spot. That's fine. It's a little boring. There's other ways to do this that might not be self evident to you if you don't know this area. Again, taking boats, taking trains. Also, if you have activities like biking that your client really wants to engage with or something like that, a DMC is the one who's really going to be able to help you find those and integrate those into the itinerary and make them happen for you. Okay, we're going to look at a sample itinerary now. This is the itinerary that we actually did for the most part on our fam trip. Now, I will say fam trips move very quickly. I would not recommend that a client necessarily did this exact itinerary, but we related this exact itinerary because I think there's a lot of great content in it that will help you see what is available for your client to do in this area. So, here we talk about America Lingen. America Lingen is the sister property in Oslo to the Thief and to Samara. America Lingen is a four-star property. That doesn't mean that it is not as nice as the other two. That means that it is set up a little bit differently. So the difference between four-star and five-star is not price and it's not level of service. It is what is provided by the hotel. So a four-star does not necessarily have a spa. It does not have somebody at the door greeting you. It does not necessarily have somebody to take your luggage to your room. It does not necessarily have some of those things that are more traditionally associated with high level of like luxury service. That doesn't mean that the people are not even more genuine or lovely, or that the level of service you feel is not just as nice as at a five-star property. It's just about what is included in the provision, like in the facilities of the hotel. Really important to remember that, because I think sometimes people want to put those into four-star and five-star into price or service level buckets, and it's really not about that. It's about what the hotel is providing you. So on our trip, for instance, some of our advisors liked America Lingen best, some of them liked Samaro best, even though technically Samaro would be a five-star because it has a spa and somebody at the door to handle your luggage, and America Lingen would be a four because there is no spa and there's nobody to greet you at the door. So subtle differences that I think are sometimes misinterpreted that I did want to bring up quickly. I mentioned NAM already, the National Museum of Art. This is a home of one of Edward Munch's screams. It is sitting there, and a lot of other really amazing art. So, and the Astrup Freenly, and I'm sure I'm totally doing that name wrong. Another amazing museum. I had not visited that one before. Was really excited to get there. They're both beautiful, beautiful collections, and so great art scene here. The next day, the sculpture park we absolutely loved. The Twist was also super exciting for us to see again, like more contemporary art, more really beautiful stuff, great food scene again. Where the Thief is located is a walking only island, so there's no cars on it. So it's great being out, seeing lots of little restaurants and all of that. And it's a pretty short walk into town and everything. Here we talk about the Twist. The Twist is a truly spectacular museum. It literally twists. It's outside of town. Great to go on your way to the airport, spend a little bit of extra time, schedule your flight in the afternoon, hang out here. It's got an enormous sculpture garden, a lot of really lovely stuff. You really just want to spend some time here and truly enjoy being here. It was lovely. And then you can head off on your flight wherever you're headed, back to the US or maybe someplace else. And then we, of course, go into Stockholm. Stockholm has a museum row that's really fantastic. It's the Vasa Museum, the Viking Museum, and it has the drinking museum, which sounds funny, but actually is very, very cool. The Vasa Museum, I'm just going to flag quickly because I actually had never been to the Vasa Museum before and didn't know about it. And the Vasa Museum is a museum around I believe it was 17th century ship that sunk 20 minutes after it was launched. So it is perfectly preserved in the brackish waters off of Stockholm. It has been perfectly preserved. It was brought up a couple of decades ago. And I think 98% of the ship is original. They've had to replace very little. So it has amazing carvings. For me, what is so amazing about it is the scale. It is so big, and imagining that this was made with wood and by people and no machines and everything else is truly, truly amazing. So I would say that's a funny little museum that if you read about it on paper you might be like but absolutely go. And then you can just wander around this lovely stretch that's right on the water, across from an amusement park if you want to do that, and see all of this amazing stuff here we are heading over into Cafe Niza, just have to highlight that. We had a wonderful lunch there. It was really, really delightful. Again, the food scene is fantastic here in Stockholm. And then we got on a private boat and we went off to one of the little, almost like suburbs, but that is out on the water in Stockholm, where we had a lovely cinnamon bun baking class at a beautiful B&B out there. This was a highlight, I think, for all of us, spending day with Linda. Some of our advisors are here in New York, might have met Linda this week because she was in New York doing some events here with Magnus from Boost Nordics. She's a lovely human being. Her house is so stylish and tasteful and beautiful. It was lovely to spend time there and to really taste her delicious cinnamon buns, see how they're made, learn about them. I'm actually really excited to make cinnamon buns back at home here now. So we'll see how that goes. I'll let you know. Then we of course went on to when we were staying at the Grand Hotel. Sorry, I forgot to mention in Stockholm. We stayed at the Grand Hotel. We didn't mention it in those other hotels earlier. I think we're talking about hotels later, so I won't talk about them right now. But we also had a beautiful lunch at Etem, which was really, really beautiful. Once we got over into the Finnish side, the Finland side, we took a ferry between the two, which was again more like a cruise ship. We visited Baro. I adored Baro. I thought it was really beautiful. It is very rural. It's on the water, but it's in the forest, and it's containers that have been brought in and then not lined on the outside with this Japanese tradition of burnt wood. So the entire thing is sustainable. It can be picked up, taken out of the forest, put down in the forest. So you're really not disturbing. They didn't cut down any trees. Really, really just a beautiful, beautiful spot to be in, and a really very peaceful and yet completely Nordic sort of feeling. Really, I think all of us were like, we could have stayed there forever. On the opposite side of Helsinki, we went to Porvo and to the Rune Hotel, which is in a small town. And I really enjoyed this experience because I thought it was a little bit like what everybody wants to see of small town Scandinavia, but is kind of hard to do. It is on the edge of town and it is right next to the old town, and you can walk out and there's beautiful forest and it leads to the beautiful river, and everything is stunningly beautiful. But the hotel itself was really, really special. It's in an old building and they have renovated it like so nicely. We had a delightful time here. The hotel does a lot of activities for their guests who are staying there, everything from photography classes to we did some bread baking. We also did a cocktail class. So lots of fun things that can be hotel based here. And again, so cozy and wonderful. We really, really loved it. Helsinki, too. We had a wonderful time in Helsinki. And so now we're going to go through some of the individual countries. Norway, Oslo, how to get there. Oslo is the main city. That is generally where you're going to fly into. You can also fly into Tromsø, but that's going to be a local connection. I don't believe there's any international flights from the US. So flying into Oslo, you can fly a bunch of different airlines. I'm not going to go into them all. Getting into the city itself from the airport is super easy. There's lots of public transportation. Oslo is actually a pretty walkable city as well. There's also ferries. All of these, as you can see from this map, water surrounds all of these areas. So ferries are very prevalent everywhere. We kind of did in the itinerary a little bit what to do, but like Tromsø is really beautiful for northern lights. It is farther up north. The fjords, I talked about the fjords, getting out to the fjords, or you can get out to the fjord by the Flam. You can, which is a train. You can use Bergen as your sort of gateway to the fjords. Really, really beautiful area up there. Again, I mentioned the museums, so good there. And I did want to talk about cruising a little bit. HX Hurtigruten Cruises, which are now have rebranded as HX. They're from here and they do cruises all through here. And this is a fantastic place to do expedition cruising. So, expedition cruising are cruises that sort of focus on the activities in an area more than being on the cruise ship. The Northern Light cruises, if you want to go after the Northern Lights, if that's your goal, cruising is a great way to do that because number one, they can go farther up north. Number two, they are out over the water. So maybe not so many clouds, but even better than that, they can plan their route to try to best navigate around the clouds. I should pause and say, how do you see the northern lights? You see the northern lights because there are no clouds in the sky and because the conditions are dry. That's when you can best see the northern lights. So being on a cruise boat enables you to navigate away from the clouds. Oh, and also, of course, no light pollution. And if you're out on the water, there's no light pollution. So if your priority is really seeing the northern lights, do think about doing an expedition cruise up here because that's going to be a great way to sort of increase your opportunity to see them. And then again, I go back to Christmas markets. Christmas markets here in Oslo are fantastic because it is out. Their very big one is out in their traditional Viking village, and it's really lovely. It has a very local feel. and really nice. America Lingen, I talked about this quickly, so we'll cruise through it. America Lingen is a fantastic hotel. It is really got a hip contemporary vibe, feels very young to me. The restaurant is fantastic. The bar is fantastic. The story I always love to tell about this is America Lingen. We would call it Norway Line. Why would they call it that? They're in Norway. They called it the American Line. This building was their headquarters. Their boats used to pull into Pier 42 here in New York City. So their bar has a signature cocktail called Pier 42, which is named after the pier here in New York. But really, they just did a fantastic job. I think you can see here from the room this really nice, warm, but contemporary vibe, really well located on one of the main squares, right very near to the train station, too, right pretty much across the street from the train station. So this is a great one. Rooms are a little bit smaller. But for instance, if you had somebody who was really interested in doing Norway in a nutshell, which is a great trip to do in the summer, if you have somebody who doesn't have a lot of time, but they want to get out and see the fjords, Norway in a nutshell is about a 16-hour day. Takes you on the train to Bergen, you get on a boat, you go out to the fjords, you get back on another train. So very long day, really best to do in the summer where you're going to have a lot of light. But from America Lingen, you can walk across the street, get on the train, and go straight from there. Samaro, we stayed at Samaro. We stayed both of these on this trip. Samaro is got this very sophisticated 1920s, 30s Art Deco vibe. Absolutely love it. The decor is so cool. Honestly, really thoughtfully done. I love the bar. It kind of opens up all this stuff. The bathroom is super cute. So again, this is an old building, so the spaces are a little bit restricted. So the rooms are a little bit on the small side. If you need bigger rooms, I'd go to the Thief. But this is hip, right in the center of town. You can walk from here to the museums. Great spot. The Thief is the dark, sexy sister, but this one is out on, again, a little island that is only walking. A little bit farther off, I still find it's very easy to walk. It's about a half an hour, 35-minute walk from where the Thief is to where Samaro is. So if you like to walk, it's a beautiful walk. Thief's rooms are a little bit bigger. All of these hotels do have some version of interconnecting rooms, so you can have families in the mall. But if you have somebody who needs a little bit of a bigger room, then I would go with the Thief because this is a new build. So here they were able to accommodate larger rooms a little bit. Any of these, fantastic hotels. Finland. So we flew on Finnish Air, and it was my first time on Finnish Air. It was great, and they have nonstop service from New York, LA, I think it was Dallas, and one other, Chicago, maybe. So a bunch of nonstop service from the US, which is fantastic because it means you get on the plane and you're right there. And as I mentioned in the beginning, that would change for me how you might curate this. You could actually have somebody coming from New York just if they want to do a quick 5-day trip and they would have a great time in Finland. If you have somebody who's more time or coming from farther, of course, that's fantastic as well. But really, flying into Helsinki was very easy to get into town. And then we have, of course, their airport that is up in Lapland. So I want to say it, but I'm going to malign it so badly. Rovaniemi Airport. That's up in Lapland. So again, that would probably be you come into Helsinki or one of these other cities, and then you fly up there rather than doing an international or transatlantic connection in. But there is an airport up there if you want to participate in Lapland activities. Very easy to get around. Transportation, super easy to walk in Helsinki. All good stuff there. What to do. Again, a lot of people are going to go to Finland specifically for Lapland. There's two areas of Lapland. There's Ruka and Levi. Levi is a little bit more developed from memory. Somebody called it the Dubai of Lapland. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's just a little bit more developed, a little bit more touristy. Ruka's a little bit more local, low key, not as much like luxury, maybe not as fancy, but for somebody who wants that little bit more feeling of like place. Why are you going to Lapland? You're going to Lapland because Santa Claus lives there, and you're also going there probably for northern lights and to have all of these amazing outdoor activities and really reindeer safaris, all of that snowmobiling, all of that kind of stuff. So that's why you want to go. Those are the experiences you really want to do up there. I haven't even mentioned sauna once, or sauna as they say there. And that was a miss of me. I should have spoken about it everywhere because there's sauna everywhere in all of these places. It is a big part of the culture. So it's not like here where you maybe might sometimes, if you think about it, go to one as a special occasion. People do it there every day. So when I was in Oslo, our group, who was so amazing, self organized, and the first morning went to a local sauna that is over on the water, and they went in there. Not everybody went in, but I think about three people went in. So, these exist in the hotels, but they also exist everywhere outside. It is a really common thing to do. People who love it, love it. And this is a great place to do it. This should be part of your activities when you're there, again, because it's part of the culture that's there. It's where locals go, it's what they do as well. The design district, lots of amazing design stuff happening throughout all of these regions. If you like Scandinavian design, you have come to the right place. Go with an extra bag. Prepare to do a check bag on your way back and pay your money for it because you will be spoiled for choice with amazing things to buy. Santa Claus Village, again, you can do Santa Claus in Finland. He lives up north, but in Porvo, he's got a house, evidently, because Porvo is the official something town, and then up north is the official something else town. So, great place if you want to go during the festive season to really sort of have a good time. Christmas markets, Santa Claus activities, the whole nine yards. And again, the beautiful island. We came into Turku off the boat, and it was absolutely beautiful and fantastic. We loved it. We did a really quick tour there. They have there some old ruins so you can really see like what the culture was like before that, because the town was burned down multiple times, and because of that they kept laying over it. So if you have anyone who's into history, really great to stop in Turku and really explore that. The St. George, again, this is where we stayed. This is, I keep bringing up Ai Weiwei, but I am a big fan of Ai Weiwei. And I think it's fantastic that this is one of the, I think only one of three commercial properties that can display his work. And it's in the lobby. Again, this felt like your sophisticated friend's apartment. It felt very low key, was a great location. We were able to go out and walk all around and do shopping and, sort of visit some major sites from here. So I think we all really adored our time here, and really contemporary, beautiful design. As you can see, looks very Scandinavian. The Barrow, I mentioned this, of course. This is just where you want to go for your peace, beauty, relaxation, to sit there, stare at the water. I would say this to me also illustrates that this area can be a year-round destination. So they had a small beach. If you're there in the summer, you can go down to the small beach. They even had a little tiny, not F&B, but the sort of setup where you could, I don't know if it was an honor bar, but you could, take drinks and you could sit there and you could bring your food down there. It would be lovely to sit there in the middle of the summer. But in the rooms, they had some fireplaces, and it would also be lovely to sit there in the middle of winter and look out at this beautiful landscape and just be peaceful and quiet and calm and enjoy just being in this place. I really thought that this felt exceptionally special. And I love the Scandinavian minimalism here. This is where you really want to go to just sort of reunite yourself with nature and everything else. I could have honestly spent a whole week here. And this is when we talk about how long to spend someplace. This is someplace I would bring my husband. I would fly over even for 4 days, go sit here, stare out at the trees and the water, and just quietly watch the world go by, read a book. You literally could not do any better. The Rune Hotel in Porvo, this is what I was saying. Porvo is the home of Santa Claus. I don't know. Santa Claus evidently has two homes in Finland. Who knew? But, he's got to do his stuff up north, and then this is where he comes other times. But this hotel was lovely. It is an older building that they have renovated so thoughtfully and carefully. The owner was amazing. He was there with us the whole time. Super lovely human being. And this is so clearly a passion project of his. He's worked in hotels in many different areas, including Dubai. And this was just so lovingly done. His parents were also there. And I really felt like this had such a feeling of place. I felt like I was, really understanding Finland and the people, and then wandering out the little old town, lovely little stores. It was the place I was able to buy like really traditional candy for my kids. It's on the waterway. And so you could cross over and do some like light hiking. Really beautiful. And he can do all all kinds of amazing activities from you, from photography safaris to reindeer activities during that season to anything else you can think of, activities out on the water, private boats. So you can go here, sort of feel like you're being a local, but it's a little town. So you're not going to see a lot of other tourists, and then really engage in this sort of cultural activities that are just so lovely, and the cozy atmosphere. And now we're going to pop up to Sweden. Stockholm Airport, you can't go wrong. It's an easy one to get to. Stockholm is probably I mean, I don't know if actually physically it's the biggest of these cities, but I kind of think it is the biggest of these cities. So Stockholm is, I'm going to say, the biggest city in these areas. A little bit more public transportation, maybe. We did a lot of walking in it. Certainly, it feels very walkable, but you do need to probably use some Ubers or private transportation around a little bit. But still, pick your areas, and so great to get around. National parks, gorgeous neighborhoods. There's the old town, which we really enjoyed walking around in. A little Parts of it were like a little bit touristy, but then I feel like you go down a little street and then suddenly you're in an area that doesn't feel touristy at all. As I mentioned, there's a museum way with the Viking Museum, the Vasa Museum, and then the Spirit Museum. All super fun. We went to all of them, and each one was a very different experience. The Viking Museum has got an interactive element where you can go around with a Viking, and they have an amazing little sort of Disney-esque kind of ride, and you learn all about Harold and Harold's travails and Harold's wife, and we love Harold. All of those were fun. I would absolutely spend a day doing all of those. Bring the kids. Again, family friendly destination. Super fun to go to all of this. The ice hotel. Ice hotels are famous. We haven't touched on them in this. People love going to an ice hotel. An ice hotel is an experience more than like someplace you go for a week. But if you ever wanted to go to a nice hotel, this is where you really can go to a nice hotel, and it's super cool. Stockholm's design district, of course, super fantastic. As it says here, the trendier districts, but like lots of lovely vintage shops and stuff like that. I sent pictures to my daughter who like loves vintage and lives in Amsterdam, and was like, "You have to come here." And she was like, "Oh my God, that looks amazing." So this is where like stuff is really hip. We had like a great time wandering in and out, buying fun sunglasses in this area. And then, as I mentioned, we did an amazing cinnamon bun making class. We got on a local ferry. We took it out to as if we were a local, on our morning commute. We took it out about an hour, went to this lovely, lovely neighborhood to Linda's B&B, and spent half a day with her learning how to make cinnamon buns and sitting and having coffee. Such a lovely experience. I would definitely highlight that to really sort of feel where you are. And again, exploring the neighborhoods by boat. So we stayed at Grand Hotel Stockholm. This is the Grand Dome here. It is a classic hotel. It is a very big hotel, beautiful, beautiful hotel, beautiful sense of place. Clearly where like lots of locals go for their big celebrations. I think there were a couple of weddings that took place while we were there. We really just thought that this was a lovely hotel. The sense of service was amazing. This is the old school classic in this area. Lindner Hotel is their partner hotel. It's next door. I believe they own it as well. This was its sexy contemporary boutique little sister. This had a fun vibe, and I really actually enjoyed it. I will say some of the art is a little bit edgy. So if you're going with kids, maybe sort of like flag that. Or if you have clients going with kids, maybe sort of flag that. But I really thought that this was like fun for like, somebody who's into the arts, wants that boutique feel, wants a bit of a vibe. This was great. We also went to, I will mention, it's not on the slide. We went to Etem. Etem was absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful, very boutique hotel. We also went to Hotel Sands, which was a hard hat tour we did and was really beautiful. And we also went to the Bank and the Burn, really fun, young, hip hotels there also. Okay, so now we are in Copenhagen, where we did not go on this trip, but I have been before, and I do love Copenhagen. Copenhagen, well, I'll talk about this in a minute. Copenhagen, very easy to get there, a good lift to it. Weirdly, some of the Nordics can be more expensive to get to from Europe, or can be a little bit more difficult to get to from parts of Europe than they actually can be from the US. So it's not always the easiest add on to a Europe trip, and it's a little bit farther, but it is a stunning destination in and of itself. So absolutely go. It's amazing. Easy city to get around in. As a New Yorker, I walk a lot. I've walked a lot in Copenhagen. I don't think the distances are that far. It's about, I think, 30 minutes from sort of one side to the other side. So I found it really easy to get around. client who was there over festive, and she said she thought that her hotel was badly located. I think that's because she didn't really get it out and like walk around as much. What to do, what not to do in Copenhagen. We don't mention it here, but I have to talk about Tivoli Gardens. Tivoli is famous in Copenhagen because it seems like it's an amusement park, and it is kind of an amusement park, but it's also, there's 28 restaurant venues there, and local people do go there. And so where Tivoli is, it's sort of culturally important. And then here's what I realized when I was there during the winter one time is that, oh my goodness, it gets dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, and then Tivoli lights up. So if you're somebody who's living in this place where it's like cold and it's like dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, it is amazing to go to Tivoli and it's lit up and there's people out and they're walking around and there are doors and it's so pretty with all the lights and everything. So it gave me a little bit more of a cultural understanding about it. But I really have to mention here Tivoli Gardens, everyone goes here will go. Of course, amazing museums, the Design Museum, Danish design. Do I need to say more? Great contemporary art, all really, really beautiful. So much stuff to do here. Copenhagen, I love this hotel. This hotel, again, is another place. The GM here is the one who gave me the line. It feels like it was meant to feel like you're staying with your sophisticated Danish friend in their apartment. The hotel rooms do feel like that. There's a lot of light wood, Danish design, white marble, green walls, really, really pretty. This is one of the rooms sort of up in the eaves. It's the old post office. And when I say old post office, I don't mean like ancient, I mean like 1970s. So it doesn't have a ton of traditional elements to it. But what they did do is they did some really fun stuff like the bar, because it was the post office, they took the leather straps from all the postal carrier bags and they created some cool pieces in the bar. Really just a lovely, lovely property, very close to Tivoli. So if you have clients who are interested in staying in Tivoli, this or Nim are the ones that are right there. Nim actually sits though in Tivoli. Nim is a super cool. Did we talk about Nim? No, Nim is super cool. It sits on Tivoli though. So while it's small, boutique, very cozy, if you don't want to engage too much with Tivoli, it could be a little bit overwhelming. Hotel Sanders, this is a much beloved one in our community. This is on the other side of town, closer to the town square, and De Angleterre, which is the Grand Dame Hotel here. Hotel Sanders, super boutique. I would say that this is like your funky Danish friend's apartment. You can see we got bathtub in the room kind of situation, but really cute. And I actually had in the middle of winter some of their mulled wine downstairs in their lobby, and they have tables set up outside, like so hygge. It was unbelievable. Really love this spot. I know some of our advisors have even stayed here and really loved it. Okay, advisor recommended hotels we love in the Nordic region. So we do outreach to our advisors and say, hey, if you guys have been here, what do you love here? So these are some ones that they've mentioned. I mentioned the Banks Hotel in Stockholm. We actually did visit, and that was a great choice, contemporary, fun. These other ones I actually have not been to, but two great suggestions in Swedish Lapland and another great suggestion in Bergen, Norway, which is where you're going to go just because it's fun and beautiful, but on the Flam, or it's also the gateway to the fjords. Going onwards, here are some other fantastic ones that, again, I have not seen, but love these mentions from our advisors. And now we're going to talk about the Northern Lights. So, Northern Lights, couple of points we need to make. To see the Northern Lights, you need no clouds, dry air, no light pollution. I also want to say, when you see these beautiful pictures of the Northern Lights, many times they are pictures. Sometimes the Northern Lights are harder to see with the eye than they are on camera. So many times people will go and say, oh, I can't see the Northern Lights. And then they go back to their hotel room and look at their pictures and say, oh my God, I got an amazing picture of the Northern Lights. So just to keep that in mind, they are fantastic. They are visible to the eye, but sometimes when they're not visible to the eye, they're still visible to the camera. Where do you go to see them? Here are some of the places outside of Nordics you can see them. Iceland is borderline Nordics because it's got the whole that related to thing, Greenland as well. But Fairbanks, Alaska. Arthur in our office is from Anchorage, and he said, when he went to school every day, he could actually see the Northern Lights. Northern Territories, Canada, Yukon, Canada, Iceland, Greenland, you can as well. As I mentioned, Lapland, any of the places up north, a lot of people say that Finland, northern Finland, is the best place. By best place, I think they mean the highest chance to actually see them. You can see the northern lights, I believe, for about 100 days of the year in northern Finland. That doesn't mean you can't see it from any of these other places. One of our advisors, I think she had traveled 5 times to see the northern lights before she actually got a chance to see them. Cruising is something to think about if northern lights are your priority, because again, they are able to navigate around so that if they know that it's going to be, cloudy in one area and not in another, they have the discretion to move the boat around a little bit so they can go to some areas where it might not be cloudy and you have a higher chance of seeing them. So that's if your priority is that. Also, cruising around this area is a fantastic thing to do. Again, these are expedition cruises, so they're smaller boats, they're more activity driven, and there's so much water around this area that you really get to explore and you get to see the beautiful landscape from the water. So something to think about if you have somebody who perhaps wants to see a lot here, has a shorter period of time, or wants to engage a little bit differently, or northern lights are their priority. Need to know some signature dishes. Honestly, the food here, fantastic. Again, Denmark had one of the best restaurants in the world for many, many years. All the food here is so sophisticated. I think we have a tendency to think that it's all sort of smoked fish and I don't know what else, smoked fish and that's it. But it really was so sophisticated, such clean flavors, really, really amazing. Dress code, very casual. Local customs, health and safety, it's all very safe, all of this good stuff. I'm going to let this all sit here. One important thing to note, just only that the euro is only in Finland. If you have anyone who's traveling around Europe and they can't leave the EU, do keep in mind not all these countries are in the EU, because sometimes for visas, and one of our advisors had that issue on this last trip. Key phrases: EU membership, they're members of the EU, but it's a different currency, different travel, all of this other stuff. Wildlife safety, these are all great things. Cultural celebrations, I'm not going to go over all of these because we are running out of time very quickly. If not the Nordic regions, where would you like to go? These are the big hits. The Scottish Highlands, a very similar sort of environment, that rugged outdoors. Is Patagonia, New Zealand, of course. These are the only places that have fjords as well. I think Patagonia has a fjord. I know New Zealand and Norway are like the only two that have fjords, and I think Patagonia does as well. I get the language a little bit confused, but these are going to be your similar experiences. Important to note that also, because if you have a client who's been to one of these and was like, oh my God, best trip ever was to New Zealand. Hey, how about going to the Nordics? This helps you to curate forward for them. I'm actually doing the reverse right now. I have a client who went to the Nordics and loved it, and we're planning a trip for them to New Zealand next because they had all of the experiences that they love there, and it's going to be similar down in New Zealand. All right, great. Thank you guys for spending time with me today. I hope this was helpful for you and your process with your clients, for learning about a new destination, and also for learning about the tools that we can provide you with here at Fora if you're interested in becoming an advisor to really be able to grow your business and become the best travel advisor you can be. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for spending time with me today and letting me share these amazing destinations for you. I can't recommend them enough. We loved our time there this time, and I think always they are a great, great option. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.